Well, it's a pleasure to be here in the studio this morning, trying to bring a hidden history of our people. For some 250 years, we was held in bondage here, and slavery made America rich and fed the entire so-called continent of Europe. But the thing that we are focusing on this morning in the studio, Minister Clemson Brown, is a history of black inventions, just in that very closed-off perspective. From 1863 to 1898, African people in this country made America the leading technical center of the world. And the educational system in cahoots with the government has systematically and schemingly hidden this history from our people, refused to make it an integral part of the curriculum in the schools, so that our people will be able to know what a great stock in which they sprung from. These inventions today are being used by European people throughout the world to make life easier for them and make life comfortable for them. And Africans in this country, the ancestry of the people that created these great inventions, cannot even find jobs in the very technology that our ancestors left here for us. There could not be a greater crime committed against a greater people. It's our responsibility to bring this history forward and to give it to our children, to teach our own. For too long, we have trusted other people to write our history, and they have virtually written us out of the history. So if the Lord's will, Minister Brown and I and other historians, artists, will not any longer let this be the case. We're going to educate our own. The first song I sang is about one of the greatest of our genius, George Washington Carver, that made over 200 and some products from a peanut, 100 from a sweet potato, and 75 from pecan. We will not be able to sing the songs throughout the entire Lent because the film would not permit. We could be singing all day. We're going to do a kind of melody of songs of some of the artists that you see on the wall here. George Washington Carver. Way back in 1864, God set forth a genius. As he grew up, he studied plants and he made many useful things. They named him George Washington. George Washington. George Washington Carver was his name. Over 100 years ago, way out in Missouri, during the time of slavery, a little black boy was born. They named him George Washington. George Washington. George Washington Carver was his name. At the age of 10, he ran away to find a school. He wouldn't have had a chance if he stayed at home, learning anything about the golden rule. But potato planting time was near. Peanuts started blooming. That made a change in Carver's life. To make a better living world, they named him George Washington. George Washington. George Washington Carver was his name. George Washington Carver had made all of these products, the booster sauce that they put on the steaks, and of course we don't advertise eating that meat too heavy, but your ink and your paper, talcum powder, axle grease, meal, flour, all these things they were able to bring from those products. Today that you see them in the supermarket walking right among our history, you don't know it. And it's brothers Randall Woods that created not only the subway that brought me out here this morning, the third rail, he also created the radiators that keep our houses warm in the winter while black folks freeze. The air brakes on big heavy-duty machinery. Every battery in every car in this city, in this country, was created by this brother. And 50-some other patents that he created that have made life comfortable for people in this country while his own lay in the streets without a job. Subway, subway, run so fast. Subway, subway, run so fast. They would not tell you who invented was a black man named Randall Wood. Subway, subway, run so fast. Subway, subway, run so fast. They would tell you who invented it was a black man named Randall Wood. Brother Randall Woods ride 8 million every day. Our brothers and sisters do not even have money to ride the subway. But evidently, that's all right. We're going to fight on through with it anyway. We're not going to let them slow us down, discourage us, and cause us to our young people to go into drugs and alcohol and all that stuff for feeling they cannot make it. We're going to build our institutions and teach our own and not allow our children to be destroyed anymore by the so-called European system of education. Now, here's a brother here by the name of Brother Jan Metzelika that created the shoelace machine. Before Metzelika created the shoelace machine, people were sewing shoes by hand. He created this machine and raised and made America the leading shoe industry in the world. But when you go down to the shoe shop industry to buy shoes, you never see his name mentioned. Nunbush, Stacey Adams, Flo Sheen, and all those people had nothing to do with the invention of this great complicated machine. Metzelika was born in 1852. No one was to know he created the shoe. During his invention, shoes was made by hand. Metzelika decided to make a plan. He grew the blueprint for the shoelace machine that put soles on shoes faster than anything you ever seen. No more wet feet, frostbites and amputated toes, peg legs on crutches, whooping, coughing, running nose. Between our feet and the ground, Metzelika put a soul. 40 pairs a month was the going rate. About 1,000 pairs a year was all one could anticipate. 400 pairs a month was Metzelika's way. And millions upon millions is what we have today. And no more wet feet, frostbites and amputated toes, peg legs on crutches, whooping, coughing, running nose. Between our feet and the ground, Metzelika put a soul. He wore crops that sacred Jesus lived boss, and he wasn't so sure. He'd wear our shoes, but throw their bricks at black children in their schools. Metzelika set the same abuse in 1862. He was the father of the shoemakers, but racism he did not let. And no more wet feet, frostbites and amputated toes, peg legs on crutches, whooping, coughing, running nose. Between our feet and the ground, Metzelika put a soul. Most people who die, souls go to heavenly homes. Metzelika's souls wrapped around our metatarsal bones. Next time you listen to the weather forecast after the news, remember the name Metzelika, the father of your shoes. And no wet feet, frostbites and amputated toes, peg legs on crutches, whooping, coughing, running nose. Between our feet and the ground, Metzelika put a soul. The very house that Ronald Reagan is laying up in today was the blueprint, was created and drawn by a brother called Benjamin Banneker. Not only did Banneker create the blueprint along with Effet, a Frenchman, that he and George Washington eventually had a big falling out, and he went back to France, gave up the plan, and Banneker completed it. But he created America the first clock, which from the first clock came the first watch, and the first almanac in this country to teach us when to plant and when not to plant, and when together. And if you go into Washington driving a car, you'll come into a kind of a circle. That the DuPont circle is the Frederick Douglass circle, a number of circles, because he was into circles. And it's a very complicated way to drive in Washington, D.C. due to the great way that Banneker laid this blueprint out. Benjamin Banneker was the man, yes he was. Oh, Benjamin Banneker was the man. Benjamin Banneker was the man. When you think of Washington deeply and the architecture plan, remember Benjamin Banneker was the man. Benjamin Banneker was the man, yes he was. Oh, Benjamin Banneker was the man. Benjamin Banneker was the man. You think of the Capitol and the architecture plan, remember Benjamin Banneker was the man. Dr. Charles Drew, one of the greatest of our scientists, that was born in Washington, D.C., went to school at Dunbar High School, and then attempted to enter Howard University, but they wanted him to play football as a football coach, so he wouldn't. He went on over to Canada and went to school there and took his degree in medicine and was able to extract erythrocyte from the blood plasma of blood and set up blood banks throughout this country. Not only did he set up blood banks throughout this country where people could go to the hospital and get blood like you go to a filling station and get gas. During World War II, he did blood transfusion in the army and throughout the continent of Europe, the peninsulas of Europe, he created blood banks. And on April the 4th, 1950, on his way to Tuskegee to do a clinic, he and four other doctors was driving through North Carolina. At that time, they didn't allow black people to sleep in hotels. So they had to drive all night and sleep in the cars. In Burlington, North Carolina, he went to sleep just before day and had a car wreck, and he died for the lack of blood. They would not let him in the hospital to get blood. The inventor of the blood bank died for the lack of blood. Dr. Drew was born in Washington, D.C., June 3rd, 1904. He finished high school at Dunbar High School, and he had many prestigious degrees. Dr. Drew was born in Washington, D.C., finished high school at Dunbar High School. There he got his degree in medicine, yes he did, and he went on to Canada and finished school. Why not teach it fair? It wasn't Dr. Kildare, Dr. Brothers, or Dr. Billy Graham. It was who? Dr. Drew. Why not teach it fair? It wasn't Dr. Kildare, Dr. Brothers, or Dr. Billy Graham. It was Dr. Drew. And Dr. Drew was the man that set up the blood banks throughout this country and on the continent of Europe and wherever there's hospitals in the world today. And Dr. Charles Drew was responsible for that. But as I said, he died for the lack of blood. Let's say a little something about the city of Chicago. You look at that major city of Chicago today, Wrigley Chewing Gum building there, one of the biggest cities in North America today, was created by a black man by the name of Jean-Baptiste Sablon. They call them Haitians in this country today. They're Africans just like we are. But he came from Haiti around 1776, came to New Orleans first, and during the French and Spanish War, and the Spanish won the war, and he had to leave and go on out to the Midwest. And there he met Chief Pontiac out there and married his daughter. And they started a little cabin along what they call the Chicago River today, But at that time, they didn't call it Chicago. They called it East Chicago. East Chicago is the Indians or the Native Americans' way of describing an onion. That whole area was just a big onion field. And of course, he started his little cabin there and traded with the Canadians coming down the river. And today, if you look at it, you will see a major city there, created by an African man with a little statue sitting off on a corner there, not big as my fist. But it's another missing page from America's history. We discovered Chicago. We discovered Chicago. We discovered Chicago. We discovered Chicago. We built Chicago. Yes, we did. And we built Chicago. We developed Chicago. We developed Chicago. Yes, we did. We discovered Chicago. Because we don't have to even talk about this great man here. He raised the hope and aspiration of so many great people. Brother Malcolm X, I respect him, and always will respect him because he brought truth to our people. He's able to look at this thing from an international perspective and put it in the correct perspective. Because we know he was killed in 1965 here at the ballroom in Harlem, but he lives on. And he's a missing page of America's history. A great man, Malcolm X. Dr. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X was not too far apart. They was barking up the same tree of truth, and the tree of a great historical people that had been oppressed and that was fighting for their freedom. I worked with Dr. King for some 8 years at the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And when he was killed, April 4th, 1968, was a great loss to our race. I'm gathered around, friends, I got a song to sing, about the life and legends of a man called Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King was born to a sharecropper's son. All his bigots hated him. He never owned a gun. I've been to the mountaintop. Today I have a dream. Don't you ever forget the words of Martin Luther King. I've been to the mountaintop. Today I have a dream. Don't you ever forget the words of Martin Luther King. At a bus line in Montgomery, had some folks sitting in the back. Wasn't no cold incident, all these people was black. Martin Luther King put a boycott on that town. He marched with our people, closed that bus line down. I've been to the mountaintop, today I have a dream. Don't you ever forget the words of Martin Luther King. I've been to the mountaintop, today I have a dream. Don't you ever forget the words of Martin Luther King. He preached and lived nonviolence until the very end. On a hotel back in Memphis, people lost their best friend. He fought for human rights as he rode from town to town. That's what he's doing in Memphis. Some sick man shot him down. I've been to the mountaintop, today I have a dream. Don't you ever forget the words of Martin Luther King. I've been to the mountaintop, today I have a dream. Don't you ever forget the words of Martin Luther King. Now it's time for you to take a look at that mirror on that wall. Did you pull that trigger? Were you there at all? And there's a sickness in this nation. You seem to be honest and clear. To kill a man with hate, because he would not die from fear. I've been to the mountaintop, today I have a dream. Don't you ever forget the words of Martin Luther King. I've been to the mountaintop, today I have a dream. Don't you ever forget the words of Martin Luther King. Because all of these people was great warriors, people that was not afraid to die. This morning when I was talking to the ministers, I came into his house. I was a bit depressed because of the hanging of one of our brothers in South Africa this morning from ANC. A few hundred years ago, they hung one in America called Nat Turner, Reverend Nat Turner, a great minister. And the brother that died in South Africa this morning made a speech similar to Nat Turner's. That I'm spilling my blood for the freedom and the liberation of my African brothers and sisters throughout the world. And I come to this gallows with no sorrow in my heart. That we cannot be turned around. You may be rich as cream. You may drive a Porsche and a 4-horse team. You can't keep this world turning around, turning around. You can't keep the people from gaining ground, gaining ground. Your name may be Caesar Shoe. Your gun may shoot a mile or two. You can't keep this world turning around, turning around. You can't keep black people from gaining ground, gaining ground, gaining ground. Maybe black, blue, red, or yellow. Name may be John D. Rockefeller. Whoa, you can't keep this world turning around, turning around. You can't keep black people from gaining ground, gaining ground, gaining ground. As Brother Frederick Douglass was a great orator, a man that fought for the liberation of our people. And when they decided to send him to Haiti to make him ambassador of Haiti, he refused to take the post because he recognized that they wanted to set up a Navy base there. Frederick Douglass, a great orator, a great fighter for our people. Frederick Douglass was his name. Frederick Douglass was his name. Frederick Douglass was his name. Then he started the Northern Star, both near and far. Educated our people all over the North. Frederick Douglass was his name. Frederick Douglass was his name. Yes, it was. Oh, Frederick Douglass was his name. Frederick Douglass was his name. Now, the man that really started us all at thinking, Minister Brown, about this thing, the missing pages of America's history, was a brother by the name of Brother Carter G. Woodson. He said that this is a missing page from America's history, that the history has not been written as it was made. And he started what they call Negro History Week. And the sad thing about it is that how could they construe this to be Negro History Week when basically everything in this country, everything that we use in our homes, all of the major technology was created by our people, and they want to give us 1 week of Negro History Week. But Carter G. Woodson awakened the eyes of the people, and at least we now have what we call Negro History Month, and we're going to have African History Year, write our own calendars, our own books. This brother here, Dr. Daniel Hill Williams, did the first open heart surgery in this country. A young boy was stabbed in Chicago after Gene DeSalvo had set up the city. A boy was stabbed. Other doctor was afraid to fool with it. He opened up the man's heart, the chest, and sewed up his heart. And of course, the man lived some 50, 60 years later. The newspapers headline throughout the world said he sold up his heart. But when you look on the radio or television today, brother, you don't see this man. You see Dr. Kildare, General Hospital, and all this other garbage that had nothing to do with the greatest scientist of our time, Dr. Daniel Hale Williams. Crispus Attucks was a brother that was misguided because all our brothers, he fought to run the British out here. He was the first man to die in the American Revolution at the Boston Common in Massachusetts. He thought if he would help to drive the British out, that we would be treated with equal aspirations here by Europeans in this country, because he was badly fooled by that. He gave his life. Sister Harriet Tubman, along with others, great fighters, ran the Underground Railroad. Frederick Douglass collaborated with her, and they freed on the average of 20 of our enslaved people per month. She ran the Underground Railroad. She did not do it by herself, because she had other people helping her, like Frederick Douglass. None of these people that led our struggles have done anything by themselves. The Europeans write the history, and they push one person forward in order to make others compete with it, to keep us divided. She was a great sister, and she fought in the Liberation Army, a liberated woman that had seizures because she was hit over the head by the so-called overseer. And oftentimes she fainted as she tried to liberate our people. That didn't stop her. Eventually, they freed so many of our people till the Northern Democrats and the Southern Dixiecrats got together and said that any slave that came north could be recaptured, captured, and carried back into slavery by what they call the bounty hunters. And that disturbed Sister Harriet Tubman. And she then worked out a route where our people could go into Canada. They hid them at a railroad, Underground Railroad passage there in a little town called Buffalo, New York. And they went into Canada. So whenever you go to Canada today and you see at least the English-speaking Africans in places like Toronto, Canada, and areas there, those are people that went on into Canada to be saved from slavery in this country. I'd like to sing just a bar of the song, The Ballad of Harriet Tubman. I am Harriet Tubman Beacon, I am Harriet the slave. I am Harriet the free woman, free within my grave. How far the road to Canada, how far do I have to go? How far the road to Canada and the hatred that I know? How far the road to Maryland and the hatred that I know? I stabbed that overseer and I took his rusty knife. I killed that overseer with his low down dirty life. 3 long years I hated him, and 3 years kept my hate. Took 3 long years to kill him, and 3 years I had to wait. How far the road to Canada, how far do I have to go? How far the road to Maryland and the hatred that I know? How far the road to Maryland and the hatred that I know? I ran that Underground Railroad and never lost a passenger. I ran that Underground Railroad and it never ran off the track. How far the road to Canada, how far do I have to go? How far the road to Maryland and the hatred that I know? For the road to Maryland and the hatred that I know. Sister Rosa Parks was another one of our great women freedom fighters. If you notice in our documentary here, we have scientists, we have freedom fighters, we have doctors. It's not just one category, because we was great in all fields. In fact, we were the apex of all the scientific work in our field. If you look at this little picture here, you'll see that black men was flying airplanes in Egypt 2,000 years before the birth of Christ. And today, they're at the airport called sky caps, red cap, blue cap, and every other kind of cap. They're not flying airplanes anymore. They're pushing wheelbarrows out there, call them sky caps and all that type of stuff, a very hurting thing. And yet they were the people that created the aerodynamics in the world. So to try to break down some of this stuff and stop our people from being abused, our people have been moving forward since the inception of slavery in this country. The young children in the South wrote this song. Their Sister Rosa Parks refused to give a seat to a white pastor in Birmingham, Alabama. If you miss me from the battery bus, you can't find me nowhere. Come on over to the front of the bus, I'll be riding right there. I'll be riding right there in the morning. I'll be riding right there. Come on over to the front of the bus, I'll be riding right there. If you miss me from the Mississippi River, you can't find me nowhere. Come on over to the city swimming pool, I'll be swimming right there. I'll be swimming right there in the morning. I'll be swimming right there. Come on over to the city swimming pool, I'll be swimming right there. Dr. Martin Luther King told him the very hand that picked cotton and made this country rich off our backs could pick a judge, could pick a district leader, and hopefully one day we'll be able to pick a president. So they added this line: if you miss me from the cotton field, you can't find me nowhere. Come on over to the folding booth, I'll be folding over there. I'll be folding over there. Yes, I will. I'll be folding over there. Come on over to the folding booth, I'll be folding over there. If you miss me from the picket line, you can't find me nowhere. Come on over to the city jail, I'll be roaming over there. I'll be roaming over there. Won't take it. I'll be roaming over there. No more. Come on over to the city jail, I'll be roaming over there. If you miss me from the back of the bus, you can't find me nowhere. Come on over to the front of the bus, I'll be driving up there. I'll be driving up there. Yes, I will. We'll be driving up there. Women and men, come on over to the front of the bus. We'll be driving up there. So when you look at this stuff, you will see that there is hardly a single thing that we use in our home that was not created by African men. C.B. Spikes in 1935 put together an automatic transmission that runs every car in this country. A guy by the name of Patterson created the A model Ford that Ford got credit for, and ran the first buses in Cincinnati, Ohio. But they squeezed them out like they do us when they decide they're not going to allow us to make our living from our creation. Another missing page for American history. The kerosene lamps, and all of my life, as I looked at this stuff, I never had an idea where it came from. The batteries in every galvanic battery, Granville Woods, the same man that created the subway train and the air brakes, the incubator to hatch out eggs, born right there in a little town called Columbus, Ohio. Some 50 patents. The telephone, the whole telephone system was created and designed by this man. It was Lewis Latimer, the black brother that put the filament in this light so that we'd be able to make these films this morning. And not only did Lewis Latimer put the incandescent inside of these lights, he wrote the first standardized version book on electricity, his first edition, right here in New York City, and wind up supervised the wind up of New York City, the wind up of Philadelphia, the wind up of Southern England, the wind up of Southern of Canada. And when you look in the records there, and at General Electric and Westinghouse, WINS radio station, all that work is Lewis Latimer's work. But when you look in Edison's biography and his research on it, he said he was a helper to Edison. He wasn't no helper to Edison. The man was the leader of it. The man was the creator of all the stuff that Edison and his family is living comfortably out of today. Your lemon squeezer in your home there, created by a black man. You got your all of your silverware and your kitchen utensils by one of our men. The air brakes that stop these big heavy-duty trains and cars and trucks. That's Granville Woods. There you got the fountain pen. It's created by Brother W.P. Purvis, January 7, 1890, I believe. Yeah, 1890. Of course, you got the city of Chicago. Then you got the old street sweeper that we see each and every day running the city here in New York, Chicago, around the world, was created by Brother C.B. Brooks, the street sweeper. And you see everybody driving it except us, making a lavish living out of it. You got your typewriter system here. It was created by Brother Burroughs and Brother Marshall. Yes, April 7, 1885. Think about that, 1885. All of your lawn sprinkles and stuff that keep grass growing beautiful in the suburbs and the homes that do not belong to us. People making a lavish living out of it. Your folding chairs, Brother A.B. Blackburn, 1899. As I told you a few minutes ago, Benjamin Banneker created the first clock in America, the first almanac. Yes, he did. And drew the blueprint for the city and the home that Ronald Reagan is sleeping in right here today. All of your letterbox, P.B. Downings, and I was born and reared in the South and saw these things standing in front of post office all of my life, and the little mailbox that on the rural route in the countryside, but never knew when I was looking at it, I was looking at my own heritage and my own history. Frederick Jones and J. Sanders brought about the refrigerator, where people used to have to dig a hole and put the food to the ground to keep from spoiling. And eventually made some kind of ice box and put ice in top. But then Frederick Jones and J. Sanders came and created the refrigerator. But you never see that name nowhere near, Delco and all of those people. And then he brought up the air conditioner to keep them, people comfortably warm, cool. And the talking movie. All this stuff was created by one man. And he created some 40 patents himself. That's Brother Frederick Jones. Then you got your lawnmower here. All your rotary machine and that stuff was created by Brother Breed. And not only another brother to him could not even read or write. They did most of the rodeo, the motorboats and all that type of stuff. And their name is nowhere near a patent, nowhere near the work that they created. And today they are laying in the streets called the homeless. And that's the sad thing about it. They could not get work in the very technology that our people left here from. All of your settee couches, your lemon squeezers, those, the airship, your settee with folding bed, all of this stuff. We have some 450 illustrations here that we will hopefully, if this film is complete, we'll be able to do another one somewhere down the line. There's no way in the world that we'll be able to show you all that our people have brought forward to this system and this society. And Brother Brown is doing this work. We ought to commend him and take our hat off to Minister Brown for helping us to bring this to the hearts and the ears of our children. And it all started with the pyramids back in Egypt, thousands of years ago. Whatever we're doing here is sort of the offspring of that. And for this great minister to be able to capture this on film so it can be gotten into every home and every school system, it means that he cannot be forgotten. Because without this kind of information being put into the minds and the hearts and the heads of our children, they will not be able to stand in this society. Whatever we build inside of America, outside of America, must come from us and not to us. But we will not be able to build anything if we do not know our own history. We cannot stand up and be strong based in European history. We cannot stand up and be strong based in Italian history or no other European history. We must walk on our own legs. We must know our own history. We are incomplete if we do not know our own history. But there's been a conspiracy to keep our children from knowing our history. And it is up to the church and up to the ministers of God to bring this truth forward to our people. Jesus said, you should know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Then it's the duty of the church and the house of the Lord, or the one the church has died admire, because it is dealing, it is an institution of learning, an institution of inspiration and education. They're at 415 Atlantic Avenue. And every other church in this city, in this country, should take on that same role of educating our people. Take the European Christ down. That is not our Christ. If you study the very history of the oldest black history book in this country, is the Bible. And when you look at it and look at this and read of the great people in the Bible, you will recognize the people that look just like us. So we prayed this morning before we put this segment of our work into the film. And we certainly hope that you will enjoy it. And not only will you enjoy it, we certainly hope that you will take this film and buy this film, put this film in every home that you can. If you buy one, or if you know somebody else who got a VHS or one of those machines that will show it, and ask them to get in touch with Minister Brown and get this stuff in your homes, to get Mickey Mouse and Popeye and all them other people out of the heads of our children and put this history into and teach our children. So the great issue is whether or not we're ready to lead, or we're going to continue to feel sorry for ourselves, or continue to let somebody else write our history. We can no longer trust other people to write our history. We must write our own history. We must educate our own. If a duck knows that it must teach its little ducklings how to swim and not to leave it to a chicken, if a roach knows it must teach its little roaches how to maneuver and not leave it to a fly, if a hen knows that she must teach her babies what to eat and not to eat and not leave it to a turkey, then we should recognize that we cannot leave the education of our people to any other race or any other people, that we must educate our own, and we must start now. And the brother that died in South Africa this morning made a speech similar to Nat Thomas. That I'm spilling my blood for the freedom and the liberation of my African brothers and sisters throughout the world. And I come to this gallows with no sorrow in my heart.